Now it's time for Lefties Losing It, and yes, we're going to check in with our favourite little Swedish doom goblin, Greta Thunberg, who seems to have forgotten about climate change scaremongering. She's now all about Gaza. She's in Copenhagen in a hijab.
Currently outside Maersk, one of the biggest shipping companies in the world, that only the last year, has shipped thousands of tons of military equipment to Israel to arm them during their genocide in Gaza. And we are here to demand that Maersk must stop all the transportation of weapons and weapon components to Israel. They must terminate all contract and investment that support the genocide and occupation of Palestine. And Denmark must implement a full military embargo on Israel. We are here because we know that Maersk are not going to do it for us. We have overwhelming evidence showing that Israel is committing a genocide in Palestine. People have been trying to resist for so long, but they are still not listening.
Oh, she's insufferable, isn't she? But she's got evidence, folks. Greta was among 20 lefties losing it, arrested by Danish police. Has that girl ever done anything other than make a massive nuisance of herself? And never forget, that extremist activist was feted by not just the world's media, but by world leaders who allowed her to lecture them, and some of them listened to her. And here's someone who I don't think would have ended up in Lefties Losing It, Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw from the great state of Texas. But here he is saying he'll kill, or unalive as the kids say, Tucker Carlson.
Have you ever met Tucker?
If I ever meet him, I'll effing kill him. Not joking, that's what he said. A Republican congressman from Texas. How has he ended up on Lefties Losing It? Well, maybe I should let Tucker explain.
The single most left-wing member of Congress I've ever met personally is a Republican from this area who has no interest in the United States whatsoever and does not even pretend. I'm not going to name names. Yeah, it's Dan Crenshaw, the most liberal, most left-wing person I've ever met.
Dan Crenshaw cannot be a congressman again. You just can't. It's just too insulting.
You know, some of the redder states have elected rhinos, Republican in name only. Best fix that before we have another Mitt Romney on our hands. Now to The View, the dangerously deranged ladies of The View who cannot stomach even a few seconds of sense being spoken on their show. Here, Sarah Haynes talks about the heartbreaking story of the Bieber's family being slaughtered by Hamas, mother and 2 children. But no, Whoopi had to jump in with some both sides arguments. And really, this is quite appalling.
These 2 little boys, Ariel and Kafir, they were 4 and 9 months old at the time, and they became, with their mother, kind of the symbol of October 7th, the tragic symbol. And our hearts are with Israel and the family. I mean, this is just the most heart-wrenching part for everyone.
I think because there is nothing positive about any of this.
And their mothers' remains
were also returned.
Were also now
eventually
returned.
Yeah. But you know, for everyone who's affected, for everyone, our hearts should go out.
She just had to jump in with some both sides nonsense. You couldn't let a tribute just go. Just let the family have a tribute paid to.
And again, I just find it so shocking that, in a way, this is, you know, when we talk about things like Hamas, and I look at where we're putting our energy, I think, well, aren't these, who are the bad guys now?
Hamas are the bad guys, Whoopi, or should I use your real name here, Karen Johnson. Hamas are the bad guys, but she wasn't done yet. She then went on a rather incoherent rant.
My point is, when do we stop saying it's these folks or these folks? When do we say, here's the enemy? Here is the enemy. This is what the enemy does. This is what the enemy does to children.
Yeah,
This is what the enemy does to children in Africa. This is what the enemy does to children all over the world because they're the enemy. That's what the enemies do. And why are we supportive of enemies that we know that our sons and grandfathers have fought in the past? What's happening, y'all?
They don't care.
That's the question.
What's happening, y'all? I think what's happening is Whoopi desperately trying not to say what she clearly wants to say. This is, after all, the woman who said it depends who you talk to when discussing whether Hamas are a terrorist organisation or not, and who claimed the Holocaust wasn't about race, it was just white people killing white people.
Also, if you're going to do this, then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race, but these are two white groups of people.
Well, how do we have to black people
see them as white people?
But you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley.
Now to the fallout from MSNBC's sacking of Joy Reid. Rachel Maddow is irate and doing monologues on her endless love for Joy. I guess we shouldn't be too surprised that one crazed far-left propagandist is going to admire another one. Here is the Russian collusion hoaxer Rachel emoting.
There is no colleague for whom I have had more affection and more respect than Joy Reid. I love everything about her. I have learned so much from her. I have so much more to learn from her. I do not want to lose her as a colleague here at MSNBC. And personally, I think it is a bad mistake to let her walk out the door. I will tell you, it is also unnerving to see that on a network where we've got two non-white hosts in primetime, both of our non-white hosts in primetime are losing their shows, as is Katie Fang on the weekend. And that feels worse than bad, no matter who replaces them. That feels indefensible, and I do not defend it.
Indefensible? Are you saying MSNBC is racist, Rachel? Is that what you're implying there? And if so, why would such a self-righteous soul such as yourself want to work for a sinister, bigoted organisation? Now to the wonderful Megyn Kelly, who had a very different take on Joy's sacking, a more reality-based take.
Single tear, white woman tears happening right here, Joy. She was officially fired over the weekend because she's a racist, horrible news anchor with no ratings. And that's really been the truth for a long time. MSNBC's under new management, and I guess they decided to come to grips with reality.
Oh, and didn't that dose of truth set off deranged dimwit Don Lemon, who had this to say to Megyn Kelly? Not the first time here that Don has had an issue with women. Remember, he had to apologise for sexist comments before he was sacked from CNN. Well, he's really, really angry again.
So let me just say to Megyn Kelly, in my 30-some years as a journalist and my 50-some years as a person of color, go yourself. Okay?
Why is he pretending to drink from an obviously empty coffee mug? I think I might just start doing that myself. Just why? Do we need props now? It's weird. To CNN now, and Jake Tapper has written a book on the cover-up about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Jake Tapper has written this book. Are you kidding me? This is the Jake Tapper who is completely complicit in this cover-up. Just have a look.
I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline. Okay. That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You are no. It's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar.
Talk about weapon-grade chutzpah. Now, here is some virulent racism from South Africa where white people continue to be dehumanised. This next character is known as Nota. He's a music executive, and here he talks on a podcast about the science of why white people are inferior species and savages that are going to die out.
We don't understand white people. White people are inferior species to us. We are Homo sapiens. they've got Neanderthal blood in them. This is the science, and this is not science that was done by black people, it was done by them. You understand? They studied this, and they realized that they're inferior to blacks. So when you look at the white population shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, for us it makes no sense to descend into the savagery that they have. Whatever land that they're holding on to, either way, their numbers are dwindling. Whatever leadership that they had is dying out as well. And you know about wealth disappearing after the third generation that it's passed down to, you know. So they're on the last generation. We're dealing with the weakest whites that the world has ever seen. We've got different categories of evolution of apes. You know what I mean? If we're all apes, we are at the echelon of that. Whites are a step below because they've also got Neanderthal DNA.
He is quite the scientist, this bloke, isn't he? Just a superior intellect, and he wasn't done yet. Here he explains that white folk are like infants.
They will never get it. They're not the same level of human beings we are. So we need to start treating them like infants. When you see an Elon Musk, you see the richest man in the world. No, you should look at him and say, this is the richest baby in the world. We're better than white people at everything that we do, that they do. Better than them at every single thing, every single thing. The best person in every single thing that both black people and white do is black. Everything, every single thing.
Yep. Moving along, let's end Lefties Losing It with a sketch from Nick Peterson on the TDS phenomenon, Trump derangement syndrome. Is there a cure for those afflicted with this condition?
How has the election made you feel on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being Nazi? My name is Dr. Nick Peterson, and I specialize in those suffering from TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. Hello. I'm Dr. Peterson. How are you? Well, Donald Trump is a felon. Nope. I asked how you were doing. The majority of Americans can mentally handle election results on both sides of the aisle. However, there's this small, albeit growing, group of, I don't want to say Americans, but people that are just disconnected from reality. Fascist. And honestly, it makes diagnosing these people a whole lot easier. I just check their social media. Gone are the days when you just search your symptoms on WebMD at home by yourself. Now they record their symptoms and post them for the world to see. The haircut is also a dead giveaway. So, what brings you in today? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's the orange democracy-destroying, Putin-loving dictator. All right, so mental illness.
Let's discuss the media trying to rewrite history and the likes of Jake Tapper now writing a book on the cover-up of Biden's health, his cognitive decline. It's a cover-up that, of course, Jake Tapper was complicit in. And let's not forget this. Tapper trying to rewrite history on his part in pushing the Russian collusion hoax.
You guys talked about the Russia hoax nonstop.
The FBI was investigating it. The FBI was investigating it, and so we covered them.
And so you took the words of unnamed FBI agents and put them on your network as if they were the gospel truth. You did it again and again. A viewer of your network would have believed that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin conspired in 2016.
No.
That was totally and preposterously false.
No.
Well, that's
what you just said is false.
President Trump has gone to, quote, extraordinary lengths to keep specifics about his meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin secret, even keeping them from top members of his own administration. Take a listen to how President Trump responded Saturday night when asked directly if he has ever worked for Russia.
I think it's the most insulting thing I've ever been asked. I think it's the most insulting article I've ever had written.
The president did not directly answer the question. It's a stunning turn of events. Do you think the president of the United States ever worked on behalf of the Russians against American interests?
Incredible. Joining me now is filmmaker and journalist Ami Horowitz. Ami, the chutzpah there is off the charts.
Oh, love you use that word chutzpah. You need to do the huh into it next time. Rita, okay, I'll work with you on it. Look, full disclosure, I like Jake Tapper, okay? Personally, I do like him I think he's among the best journalists that exist in the mainstream media. Granted, it's a very low bar. I get that. But look, when they do, legacy media is dead, and they don't know it yet. And when they end up doing the post-mortem on it, and they define the inflection point on when we actually, the heartbeat actually stopped, right? You know, you cut the head off like a snake or something, or a chicken, it keeps running. So right now we're in the head was cut off and the body's still running around. It doesn't know it's dead yet. But when they find out when was the head cut off, it was the Biden debate, right? It was when Joe Biden was literally staring into the maw of the great beyond as the other side was calling to him, come to the light, come to the light. And the mainstream media still defended him, right? They still, I remember that first night they said, okay, this is a disaster. But they clearly regrouped afterwards and it's just a bad debate. They kept saying it was a bad debate, a bad debate. That was the talking points. All the mainstream media was using it. Look, they all had access to Joe Biden. They know what was happening. They saw that his staff and Dr. Joe Biden, the greatest doctor after Dr. Pepper, was sticking their hand up his bum and working him like a puppet, right? We all saw when he finished the speech, barely got through it, and you had Jill Biden, and you had his staff, and you had Barack Obama had to grab him gently by the elbow and lead him off stage. These are all things that we saw. If the mainstream media continued to say, deep fakes, cheap fakes, it's not true, right? We've never seen him in better shape. He's doing jumping jacks every day. The man's a steel trap. It's unbelievable how they doubled and tripled down on trying to push this guy is with it when we all saw he wasn't. It's the death of mainstream media. And now Jake is putting out this book, conveniently months after the election. That's the state of the mainstream media, Rita.
Well, of course. And Jake was complicit in this. It wasn't just that he refused to cover the obvious, the thing we could all see with our eyes and hear with our ears. And it was started well before the debate. He would argue it was evident even before the 2020 election, Joe Biden's cognitive decline. We certainly talked about it on this station. The evidence was plentiful. But not only did they refuse to cover it, but they would push back so strongly against anyone who did dare mention it. They called it fake news and misinformation and Russian interference. It was absolutely shameful. And I think you're right. It's helped seal their fate. Now, let's talk about the Trump deal that he seems to have secured here. He's got his way again, securing a vital minerals deal with Ukraine. This is to compensate for the billions of dollars America has provided Ukraine in recent years. Tell me more about this army and also how the peace negotiations travelling.
Yeah, look, is Trump sick of winning yet? I don't know. I gotta find out. I mean, it's a lot of winning. Winning gets tiring after a while. Look, maybe Zelensky should not have gone to Pennsylvania when the Biden administration asked to. Look, we all have anxiety dreams, right? And I certainly have an anxiety dream, and mine is, I don't think, abnormal. But my anxiety dream, Rita, was always that I had. It's amazing. I'm at a school after decades, right? And yet I still have the anxiety dream where, like, I show up to class and the final is happening and I didn't study for the test, right? I even forgot sometimes I even signed up for the class. Well, this is where I think Zelensky is coming to this meeting with Donald Trump, right? I think Donald Trump is like advanced physics, and Zelensky's like, oh, crap, I didn't study for the test. I mean, when he comes in, he's going to get mauled on this deal by President Trump. And I think ultimately, though, this mineral deal is great, not just for the U.S. And by the way, he's the only one who came up with this concept. Right? The Europeans didn't come up with this concept, which they should have. And certainly Biden didn't come up with this concept, where they should have, saying, hey, look, you have all these minerals. I think we can help you get them and maybe defray some of the cost of billions and billions of dollars we spend on your defense, which you know that I support. And that's what's happening. I think it's brilliant to come up with this concept. Nobody else did. I think there's going to be, okay, first of all, I want to point out, I love pointing out the media. It's not, like, that's my favorite thing to do, is talk about the hypocrisy of the media. By the way, the media has been calling this a colonial land grab, like old style colonialism, and we want to put them under our it's insane how they're trying to spin this as a loss. I think the larger problem, okay, first of all, I think it's great because what you want to do is you actually want to align your interests with the U.S. interests, right? That's when you have an enemy like Russia on your border, you want to have as many friends as possible, and you want to incentivize those friends. This will allow us to say, look, we have security interests we want to guarantee. Therefore, we're going to make sure this never happens again, even if there is a peace deal. There's still work to do after a peace deal is done. So this is right. This is amazing. I think the bigger problem we're going to have is that, look, ultimately these things are a lot of them are behind Russian lines, and also, by the way, a lot of the surveying that was done in the 60s and 70s by the Soviets, and we're not even sure they're actually viable. So there's a whole bunch of other problems that I think they're going to run into about this. But I think, look, it's a phenomenal deal. I can't believe nobody thought about it. It's great.
Now let's hear from the border czar, Tom Homan, and how he will handle authorities around the country who do not comply with the Trump administration's orders.
The police commissioner of Boston, you said you doubled down on not helping the law enforcement officers of ICE. I'm coming to Boston. I'm bringing hell with me. I looked at the numbers this morning. I stopped counting at 9 child rapists that were in jail in Massachusetts, but rather than honoring an ICE detainer, released them back into the street. You're not a police commissioner. Take that badge off your chest, put it in the desk drawer, because you became a politician. You forgot what it's like to be a cop.
Oh, I've got to say, the base do love him. Tell me about the resistance army against these orders, and how are the deportations progressing?
Yeah, I love that guy. I mean, he is central casting for this role, right? Look, I live in New York City, right? I live in almost outside of the border states, ground zero for these illegal immigrants who were shipped here. And I can tell you that as somebody who lives here, walks around, is here every day, you can feel it. Like, you could literally feel there are less illegals on the street. You can see ICE around. And I think that I'm not the only person seeing this. I think there are blue city people who are seeing this also in Boston and in Chicago and in LA and in New York. And I think that, look, the Democrats are doubling down on stupid, okay? I mean, how have they not seen? They lost an election. I keep saying this, Rita, and it bears repeating. They lost the election, not in small part because of the illegal immigration problem. And you saw all the blue cities trend toward Trump. He didn't win them, but they moved significantly toward him based on this issue. They can't see it. They don't realize it. And that's great. Look, there's going to be a midterm coming up sooner than later. And this is going to play into that. Also, look, I love how, and by the way, illegal immigration is down, just so we have the numbers, it's down 80% from the same time last year. Incredible. And by the way, and we're just getting started. And it's trending, 80% is the average since the inauguration. But every week it's trending even more. Last week it was down 90% based on the same time from the year before. So that's where we're going. Yet the media, again, I love talking about the hypocrisy of the media. It never ends. They're saying it's not really Trump doing it. Really? Who else is it? And they're also saying, oh, but theoretically, possibly, now you might put more people in jeopardy because they might go on different routes that are more dangerous. Darling, they're not coming at all. They're not taking dangerous routes because they know the border is closed. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I love the media treating it as some wild coincidence that Trump comes in promising to close the border and 90% drop in illegal immigration numbers coming through. And obviously it was a coincidence when the US was seeing record numbers under Biden. I mean, this is why trust in the media in the US is at record lows. Before you go, I want to ask you about this new program. We all know what a green card is, but the Trump administration is introducing a gold card. I'll let the president explain.
We're going to be selling a gold card. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges plus. It's going to be a route to citizenship. And wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card. They'll be wealthy, and they'll be successful, and they'll be spending a lot of money and paying a lot of taxes and employing a lot of people.
Army, what's been the response to this? It may not be the most egalitarian policy, but it'll do precisely what the president says there. It's going to bring investment, taxpayers. We had a similar program. We have a similar program in Australia. 30 seconds. What's the verdict on this gold card?
Gold card. This is so Donald Trump, right? Gold card. I love it. I love it. Look, I'm a sucker for these things, right? I had to buy. I looked at the Bonvoy Marriott card. It cost me $600 a year, but I get all these upgrades and access. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I want it. I need it. Yeah, people. Look, why not? Why not have smart, rich people moving to America? Incentivize them. Give them this gold card. What's wrong with bringing people who know how to innovate, who know how to invest, and bring them to this country? It's only 10,000.
Absolutely. You're going to create jobs instead of take jobs.
Absolutely.
Army, we're on a unity ticket on the gold card. Thank you so much for your time tonight.